Good morning, good morning. Welcome to Monday Messages. I'm a bit earlier than I have been traditionally, because usually I do this at 10 o'clock. And I'm a bit late by my new time. So forgive me as I settle into this new routine. So the first thing I should say is that I am planning to do these messages at 9:30 on a Monday as opposed to 10 o'clock. And I'm aware that for some of you that doesn't really matter because you actually don't watch it live, you watch it as a replay. And for some you do watch live. And if that means that you can't and that, that's going to affect you adversely, please let me know, because I'd really like to accommodate everybody. And at the moment, though, I'm not sure who watches. Well, I can tell if I go into it, but it would be lovely to know who watches live and who watches the replay. So if you're watching on replay, it's great if you could just do a hashtag replay when you're watching. That's really helpful. And if you do find that actually I like watching it at 10 o'clock in the morning, and if it's 9:30, that means I can't, again, let me know, because that's something that can be quite fluid. So, okay, that's the first thing. Today, I wanted to talk about censorship, and I was prompted to do that by Mark Zuckerberg's announcement last week, which some of you may have listened to, about coming to an awareness that the so-called fact checkers that were extremely prevalent over the last 4 years on social media platforms, particularly Facebook, were counterproductive, that they were very politically biased and were akin to censorship. Well, Mark Zuckerberg. And whilst I applaud that awareness, and I applaud the fact that he's no longer going down that route, if indeed that is the truth, it's never too late to be aware of that and to change our behaviour, for sure. Just want to lob in that actually the skeptic in me would say, okay, does that mean the end of censorship? I don't think so. Anyway, that's a different subject. So it made me think about, well, okay, how do we censor ourselves? Because we all do all the time. We do this thing where we have set up beliefs, and we've put values in place, and we've formed perspectives and viewpoints over the years, some of which we've acquired from others of influence in our lives, and some we've taken on ourselves. And then all our behaviour and our views combined create a lens, a kind of filter, if you like, that we see life through. And when we encounter things that don't fit in with that lens, with that perspective, it can be really jarring. It can be kind of discombobulating, and it can pull us up, and it can either, depending on what it is and who we are, it can tip us into aggression. It can tip us into, how dare you question me? It can tip us into, oh my God, that's really scary. That can't possibly be true. My perspective is the only truth. And we can get very defensive, very argumentative, kind of addicted to a need to convince the other person or the other people or the other groups, or, wherever you've encountered this, that our way is the only way, and that they must change their view and they must change their perspective, because otherwise it's just too scary to contemplate. And that is not very often conscious. it's all in our subconscious, and it's all going on without us even being aware of it. And so we do this thing called delete, distort, and generalize. One of those, or all of them. So when we come across information that flies in the face of what we've already decided is true, we will either just completely ignore it, cut it out of our lives. And of course, we can do that in a very positive way as well. If we've decided that something is just, we don't want to have it in our lives, then we can censor that we can make that choice in a positive way by not inviting it in. I mean, for example, I do not watch the news because, number one, I don't believe half of it, and number two, it just makes me either very angry or very depressed. And I don't want to do that. And it does not mean that I'm not aware of what's going on. I choose to get my information from different sources. That could be a form of censorship either way, basically. You could either see that as deleting it from my life. If I was truly burying my head in the sand and not aware of anything, then that's a form of censorship, isn't it? In my view, it's not censorship. It's me protecting my energy and choosing where I get my information from, being more choosy about where my information comes from, rather than relying on people who have a vested interest in any particular viewpoint. Anyway, I'm digressing. I had delete, distort. We can look at information and we can just take out bits of it. That happens all the time. I see that even on replies to posts on social media. It was a great example the other day of somebody who had just cherry-picked one thing from somebody's post and run with it, basically. It was taken out of context. It was clear to me that there had been no pause button pressed to go, now, hang on a second, let me reread that. Is that right? Have I understood that correctly? None of that had happened. And a rant ensued. And then that invited more rants. So, we have the ripple effect there. And then generalizing. So just kind of dissipating the information, if you like, so that it dumbs it down and becomes less relevant. So kind of we can ignore it again. And that's what we do all the time. I had a funny example, it's funny now, an example of something that happened to me before Christmas in that mad rush for shopping for food, which despite our best intentions, we seem to get sucked into. I decided to go on a food shop very early one morning, and I went into my local shop, big shop. When I went in, wasn't terribly busy, which is great. That's why I did it. Did my big shop, came out with my laden trolley, and marched up and down the car park. Couldn't find my car. Could not find it. Went up and down 3 or 4 times. Lovely people started going, oh, have you lost your car? Have you used your key thing? Which I haven't got, of course. So I couldn't do that. Anyway, cut long story short, I became convinced that somebody had stolen my car because I knew where I'd parked it. I knew what aisle it was and even where in the aisle it was, and it just wasn't there. So my brain started going, oh my God, that, what was in the car that was valuable? What's going to happen? How am I going to get home? How am I going to tell my husband? All of this, right? So then I decided to go up to one of the many car park attendants that were milling around because it was so busy. And I just said, I don't know if you're the right person to talk to, but could you help me? I think someone's stolen my car. And he was lovely, and he put his hand on my arm and he said, "Okay, I don't think anyone's stolen it, but let me help you look." And for a nanosecond, I actually felt like punching him, because I went into that part of me that went, "How dare you suggest that I don't know where my car is? Oh, you calling me a silly woman?" And, blah, 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 all that nonsense. Fortunately, it was very, very brief, and I managed to tip myself back into, yes, actually 2 pairs of eyes are always better than 1. And he asked me what car it was, and lo and behold, literally like a few hundred yards up the path, there was my car. And I thanked him profusely and stood there thinking, how the hell did that happen? And again, I was aware of part of me going down a not very helpful spiral of, well, this is obviously the beginning of dementia, and my mother died from a form of dementia. If I literally didn't see the car. And then I remembered, okay, why didn't you see the car? I didn't see the car because I was convinced, utterly convinced, that I had parked it somewhere completely different. It wasn't where I believed I had parked it. It was actually much further up in the row. And I literally hadn't seen it. Even though I had looked and looked and looked, I didn't see it. It was invisible to me. And that happens a lot, when you're looking for something and then you go away and you say that you've looked everywhere, and you give yourself a breathing space, and you come back and you look in a place for this, I'll just look for the last time, and there it is. So our brains do funny things when we are in a little bit of a panic, or we're convinced of something that isn't actually true. And I'm offering that as the most recent example that I can think of that happened to me. It was also useful because I was aware of what was coming up for me. And I was able to not go there. I was able to actually flip myself into a state of feeling so relieved that I'd actually found my car, and grateful to the lovely man who was so kind and didn't laugh at me and didn't call me an idiot or a silly woman or any of those things like that. And that I then drove away feeling incredibly grateful. So there's lots of lessons in that little story, I think. For me, there were anyway. But I offer it up as an example of what we do on a daily basis in terms of self-censorship, and becoming aware that that's what we do, that if somebody challenges or offers a different perspective, that it can feel scary, and we can go into a kind of default mechanism of staying where we are, basically. And when we're able to become conscious of that and really open up to the possibility that there are other views, other perspectives that are just as valid as our own, then it's actually really liberating. Because when we're firmly tethered to one belief system, one perspective, one truth, it is a tethering. It means we are not open, and we are liable to tip into default reactions when challenged, when offered something else, when offered something that may be more liberating, more expansive, but could feel initially quite uncomfortable, that we shut it down, we delete it, or we distort it, or we generalize it. And sometimes we can't even see it. So what I want to invite you to do is just practice becoming aware that when you come across a post, something in a book, another person talking, whatever it is, even within your family, a viewpoint or a belief that is different from your own, rather than going, oh, that's not true, and starting to, tip into defending your own long-held views, take a moment to just ask yourself good questions. I've written the questions down in the comments with this video. It is a practice, and once we do it several times, it becomes automatic to just do a quick audit. How do I know that my truth, my view, my perspective is the only valid truth or perspective? Do I have all the information available to know that beyond a shadow of a doubt? That's the first two questions. And is it possible that there are other views, other perspectives, other belief systems that are equally valid, that exist? That's the third question. Fourth question is, why do I feel the need to convince others that my way is the only way? And the last question is, what will be different for me when I can let go of that need to feel that my way is the only way and my view is the only view? What will be different? And I would encourage you journaling on those and see what comes up. And I know from my own experience how freeing it can be when we are open to the possibility that there are many views and there are many perspectives and there are many beliefs, and there is room for all of them. Now, that doesn't mean to say we have to take them all on and believe them ourselves necessarily. It does mean that we become much more tolerant, much more understanding, much kinder, much less invested, actually. And that is freeing. It is liberating. And it means that we can live our lives with a greater sense of freedom. That's my perspective anyway. And as ever, I'd be really interested to hear your perspective on this and to ask you to tell me whether you agree with that perspective or whether you don't. That would be a start. Thank you so much for listening. And yeah, don't forget that from now on, it's going to be a bit earlier, these messages. And please do let me know in the comments whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching it. Well, I know whether you're watching it live. But if you're watching it on the replay, it'd be really good to put #replay in the comments. Thank you so much. And I hope that you have a wonderfully free, uncensored week. Okay, bye.